Hey there, Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness, leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take a concept, a strategy, something that we use to great success in our Autism Fitness Certification program with our Autism Fitness Certified Pros, and bring it to you so that you may explore it and even start implementing it with your autism and neurodivergent athletes of any age or ability level. And before I get started, please like, subscribe, and even share this video with people for whom it might make a difference if they're running a fitness program, an adapted PE program, or if they're just thinking about getting started with one. This is a foundation for everything that you would need to do in order to be successful, not only from a supportive perspective in terms of motivation and engagement, but in terms of programming. And that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. Of course, with any of these videos, I'd love to know what you think, how it impacts not only your frame of mind or your practice, but actually how you're implementing it as well. And if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, then leave that in the comments below. I'd love to know, because it helps me kind of help you guys also. Anyway, what we're going to be talking about is some of the methods that are less than likely to deliver outcomes. And some of these have been around for a long time. And I think in the case of a few, if not all of them, they are activities or modalities or tools that have been around for so many decades that it's just automatically assumed that they are appropriate to use in physical therapy or in fitness programs or movement-based programs for the autism population. And it's not to say necessarily that they are bad, although that word could certainly be used to describe a few of them. But oftentimes, and we learn this through trial and practice and the good science of exercise, as in exercise science, which modalities, which tools, which processes are actually going to yield the intended results, the outcomes that we want, and which are going to, suffice to say, not, or they're going to provide much less of a benefit or an enhancement than originally purported. And we'll get into the history of some of these as well. Now, to start, a couple of important factors. When we talk about outcomes, specifically with autism fitness methodology and what we are trying to achieve with and for our neurodivergent life skill athletes, is for them to develop strength, stability, motor planning skills that generalize, and of course stamina in there as well, that generalize to activities of daily living. So we're getting stronger in particular movement patterns, the squat, the press, the pull, the carry, the hinge, that have a high likelihood of generalizing or being displayed, being utilized outside the gym or outside the clinic or outside the home. That is our top priority in providing training for our athletes. Like, yes, in the gym we have success and success and success, and the athlete is growing more confident and more independent and more capable and more motivated and more intent. Yes. However, what we really want to do here is have those gym goals being done, being observed, being performed outside of that one environment into multiple environments. That is what we are after. So we're going to use that as not so much an operational definition, but an operative in terms of what we're striving for. Because sometimes there is this question around, well, what about fun and what about variety? They certainly have their places, but I'm going to go through, again, that short list of some of these modalities that don't really filter out to be all that is assumed most of the time, and talk about why they may not be sufficient, and why the evidence has just demonstrated that they're not what many thought or continue to think that they are. So number one are going to be unstable surfaces. You see these all the time. They're in catalogs, they're in videos, they're on social media. We have individuals with autism and other neurodiversities balancing on an unstable surface. Maybe it's a large unstable surface. Maybe it's one of those little balance pods. Maybe it's a balance beam, but something that is typically round on top, a little bit squishy. And the premise behind this is that it is going to enable a better sense of balance, and that balance is going to carry over into better stabilization and locomotion in daily life. And that simply does not seem to be the case, as evidence demonstrates, because it is far too specific and finite an activity, balancing on an unstable surface or on a balance pod, to generalize to other situations. Balancing on a balance pod is going to get you better at balancing on a balance pod and not much else. And it's not to say it's bad, but it's not going to generalize or enhance motor and balance skills in just about any other situation, because other balance situations are going to be specific to that particular terrain or environment. It's not to say that the balance pods or unstable surfaces can't be used as a fun activity. You know, one of the conversations I was having recently on a podcast was a dad talking about his son doing ninja warrior training, which is awesome. I would never say don't do it because it doesn't have the intended benefit. But we should consider that using the unstable surface as a way to enhance motor skill development or balance or vestibular habituation or any of these others is not going to be the case. Now, many people are still using them for whatever reason. Either that's the way they learned it, or they saw it somewhere else and they want to continue to do that because the idea is, well, one must equal the other. Well, fortunately for the pursuit of greater training methodologies, but unfortunately for the case of, I guess, the balance pod industry, who are clearly not sponsoring this video, it just does not turn out that an unstable surface is going to increase balance in an individual. And if it seems to be the case, usually it's because that individual is moving more than they were before, and balance pods or unstable surfaces happen to be a part of a larger program for them. But it doesn't turn out that it does any more core stabilization, that it engages any greater muscular contraction. In fact, the opposite has actually been demonstrated to be true. So if it's part of a fun, and I put fun in quotes because, you know, it's not always immediately apparent that something is fun. And just because we label something fun doesn't mean that it is going to be actually enjoyable and reinforcing for an individual. But that being said, if we're playing this game of, well, we want different varied surfaces and experiences and different movement, then sure, throw it in. But it is not going to have that intended outcome of increasing balance and stability. It's just not. We want our athletes to be able to root their feet into the ground in order to be stable, because that way they're going to get a lot stronger. Case in point, when we do medicine ball work in Autism Fitness, one of the things that we coach our athletes to do, and again, our athletes of any age or ability level, is to root their feet and maintain a good, stable ground position with their heels and the front of their foot planted down. This way they are much more stable when they are throwing a ball. So in order to create that power and create velocity on the ball, they have to stabilize with their feet, with their lower body, with their trunk, yes, of course, in order to perform a more powerful throw. So with that, we go from balance pods into stability balls, which stability balls saw the height of popularity probably around the mid-1990s. And again, the idea was similar to balance pods, that an unstable surface, whether you are squatting on it or doing a dumbbell bench press on it or an overhead press, or any other standard strength exercise was going to be, air quotes again, more functional if it were done on an unstable surface, like sitting on a stability ball, sometimes referred to as a Swiss ball, but any large bouncy ball, if you're sitting on a ball, it's an unstable surface because it's round. And what's happened there is same thing. The research has demonstrated that it doesn't actually create more stability by way of unstable, and it doesn't engage any more muscles. In fact, probably less. It lessens the overall strengthening effect of that exercise. And so using a Swiss ball, and people are still doing this all around the world. Unfortunately, the research is very clear. Again, I say unfortunately because the practice is so widespread, is very clear that it is not going to be an effective replacement for a stable flat surface, i.e. the floor or a bench or anything else that is not going to incur some type of balance requirement other than standing up or sitting down or laying down. It is simply not going to enhance the effect of that strengthening exercise and might actually detract from it. All right. The third are scooters, and we see these a lot. Now, scooters is kind of, I won't call it necessarily a 50-50. Here's why. Typically, when we see scooters being utilized, it's in a physical or occupational therapy clinic or situation, or it's for PE or adapted PE. And the idea that is often put forth, or the goal, is to increase, core stability or motor planning. Because, and if you hear it from me first, great. But if you've heard it before, and you've already had an introduction to this, motor planning and core stability are two vague at best terms, and they are thrown around all the time, particularly with the autism and neurodivergent world. And it's kind of we're going to work on core stability, and it automatically means this thing. And in my 20 plus years of practice bridging exercise science and positive behavior support and coaching for the autism and neurodivergent population, I've heard everything attributed to core stability, from let's do crunches to let's have them sit on a stability ball, to let's do crawling exercises, which, by the way, we used to have in the autism fitness curriculum, but started to take it out, particularly for our older teen and adult athletes, because the benefit is just not really there. We can be doing much, much better things with our training time. So the scooter thing, number one, here's why there's a little caveat. Number one, the scooters, they can definitely be fun. They can be exciting. There is certainly a safety factor we have to keep in mind because you have rolling wheels under there. But that being set aside for right now, scooters, with the stomach on the scooter, and the athlete, pulling with their arms or pulling themselves across or pulling with a rope, great. But that's going to be more of an arm and shoulder strengthening exercise than it is really going to be a core, if we're talking about engaging the abdominals type of exercise. It's not really going to be a core exercise, because what is the core doing there? It's flat on a surface. It would be the same thing as saying, well, sitting down is a low body exercise if I'm overhead pressing. No, if I'm overhead pressing, it's still an upper body exercise. I'm just sitting in a chair. So there might be a little bit of a benefit to the thoracic spine, because the athlete has to arch up when they are on, well, presumably arch up their upper back when they are on that scooter, on the floor. But overall, is it really going to engage the core more than a heavy carry? Absolutely not. So we still see a lot of scooters, and particularly for young kids, if we want to utilize that because it's fun, because it moves across the floor, because they can be self-propelled with it, then absolutely. But it's not going to enhance or train or strengthen the core in a way that is either special or elusive from other modalities. So we have to be careful with not only the terminology, but really understanding the the exercise science and some of the physiology behind these things. Because one thing like moving around on a scooter might look like core training, but there's not a whole lot of, depending on your definition of core, not a whole lot of core contraction or abdominal contraction going on there. Same thing with the stability ball, same thing with balance pods. We have to be really careful we have to be so careful that my glasses are slipping off, but we have to really be careful with operational definitions, how we are defining something and whether or not it's actually doing that thing, especially with exercise, because this is still an area that is quite new and different and emerging for the autism and neurodivergent population. And the fact is that most of them, not on loop right now, but wanted to get it across, most of the time, the exercises that are going to be the most effective are not that much different than the ones that would be most effective for the neurotypical population. We want to get in our big compound movements, squat, pulls, presses, carries, hinges, because we know this, given history, research, continued practice, that those big compound movements are going to be the best at developing general strength that is then carried over or generalized to activities of daily living. And we don't have to find the super secret, patented or copywritten, I don't know, standing on one leg while balancing on a stability pod while touching your nose and then pressing a weight overhead, because that is ridiculous. If you see it, run. If you see it, I don't know, comment about it. You can even tag me and ask me, is this ridiculous? And I will be happy to answer that, because one of the things that Autism Fitness is here to do is to make sense of fitness, particularly strength and resistance training for the autism population, so that they have a stronger and safer and just overall better quality of life throughout their lives, from children to adolescents, to teens, to adults, to geriatric, across the entire spectrum, across all ages, developing strength, stability, better motor planning, so that they have a better life. That's what we're out here to do. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I'd love to know what you think. This one could get interesting. Leave a comment down below. I'm happy to answer it. If there's a question you have, I'd love to answer that too. And that's about it for this, I think, right now. There might be a part 2. Anyway, if you're interested in becoming an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can download the course syllabus and learn what it takes to go pro and join the movement for movement. I'm Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness. Thank you for watching.